You're back in your home country after years abroad, trying to find your footing in a fast-paced world that feels both familiar and alien. For me, that was South Korea. The relentless hurry-up culture was suffocating, pushing me to the edge. I craved peace, a chance to slow down and reconnect with myself. So, I made a decision, a week-long motorcycle camping trip across the southern countryside. I wasn't a fan of camping. The inconvenience always turned me off. But as I've grown older, I've learned to embrace challenges. Plus, with my wife and kids away visiting family, the timing was perfect. My original plan was to zigzag south from Seoul, but a week wasn't enough. So, I started in Busan, weaving through the quiet towns of Gyeongsangnam-do toward Gyeongsangnam-do. I wanted to soak in the fading beauty of rural Korea, villages that might not exist in a few years as the population ages and moves away. I rode through Yangsan, Miryang, Gimhae, and Changwon, snapping photos, visiting small landmarks, and sipping coffee at roadside cafes. It was exactly the escape I needed, until it wasn't. One afternoon, I rolled into a sleepy village nestled in the mountains of Gyeongsangnam-do. My routine was simple: grab lunch, pick a destination, and find a spot to pitch my tent before dark. This village was like a time capsule. Single-story shops lined the main street, a rice mill hummed in the distance, and an old-fashioned tea house sat quietly, untouched by time. I spotted a convenience store, stocked up on snacks and drinks, and decided to set up camp near a traditional pavilion at the edge of town. Out of courtesy, I sought out the village chief to ask permission. He was warm and welcoming, telling me to use the water if I needed it. I set up my tent, feeling content as the sun dipped below the horizon. But then, I heard a voice. I peeked outside, and there she was, an elderly woman, maybe in her 60s, staring right at me. My heart skipped a beat, but I managed a polite greeting. I explained I was on a motorcycle trip and had the chief's permission. She nodded, her eyes soft but unreadable. "You'll hurt your back sleeping in that tent," she said. "Come stay at my house." I thanked her but declined, explaining that embracing discomfort was part of my journey. Her kindness lingered in my mind, but I brushed it off, zipped up my tent, and drifted to sleep. Until midnight, a violent shaking jolted me awake. My tent was thrashing in a sudden storm. No forecast had warned of this. Rain battered the fabric and wind howled through the trees. I unzipped the door and saw her, the grandmother, standing in the distance, soaked to the bone, waving frantically for me to come to her. Her concern pierced through the storm, and something in me gave in. I packed up my gear, grabbed my bike, and followed her to her house. The village was eerily silent. The house is surprisingly modern for such a remote place. Her home was spacious and tidy, but something felt off. Above the living room TV hung a framed photo, not of a family, but of her, alone, beaming with an almost theatrical smile. A chill ran through me, but exhaustion dulled my instincts. I ignored it. She turned on the heater and handed me a steaming cup of cassia seed tea. I showered quickly, feeling awkward in a stranger's home, and settled into the guest room. The room was cozy, large windows, a wardrobe, some exercise equipment, and a neatly made bed. I hung my wet jacket by the window, plugged in my body cam and battery pack, and slipped under the covers. The warmth of the heated floor and the tea melted my fatigue away. I was out like a light. Then in the dead of night, a sound snapped me awake. Creak, sharp and deliberate. I froze, straining my ears in the darkness. Nothing. Just the grandmother moving around the house, maybe. I tried to shake it off and close my eyes. Creak. There it was again. I sat up, scanning the room. Empty. My heart pounded, but I told myself it was nothing. Just my imagination running wild. I forced myself back to sleep, but an uneasy feeling clung to me, pulling me into a hazy, dreamlike fog. When I woke at dawn, something was wrong. My body felt like lead, my limbs aching as if gripped by invisible claws. Every breath tightened my chest, and my mind was clouded like I was drowning in fog. I glanced at the clock. 10:20 a.m. I never slept that late. My alarm, set for 6:30, hadn't even registered. Stumbling into the living room, I found the grandmother staring at me, her face etched with concern. "You look terrible," she said. "You've been pushing yourself too hard." She insisted I go to a clinic, but I brushed it off, citing my schedule. My body, though, had other plans. Reluctantly, I let her take me to the local clinic. The doctor hooked me up to an IV, blaming dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. I felt slightly better, but far from normal. Against my better judgment, I agreed to stay another night at her house. We stopped by a market, grilled meat in her yard, and chatted. She smiled warmly, saying, "Come back with your family anytime." Her kindness seemed genuine, but that uneasy feeling never left me. That night, I sipped another cup of her tea and fell into a heavy, dreamless sleep. The next morning, I woke to a dull headache and that same crushing weight in my body. The alarm sounded distant, like it was underwater. I dragged myself out of bed, thanked the grandmother, and prepared to leave. She stopped me, handing me a summer neck gaiter. "It was for my son," she said, "but he's far away now. Take it." I thanked her, slipping it on despite a faint, musty smell. I chalked it up to being stored too long and hit the road. 2 days later, in Gyeongsangnam-do, I was still unwell. Holed up in a rundown motel with a barely functioning AC, I gave up on sleep and started reviewing my body cam footage. That's when I found it, a video I didn't remember recording. My hands trembled as I hit play. The timestamp read midnight. The grandmother, wearing a gray robe, crept into my room. Step by step, she approached my bed. She leaned over me, sniffing my body, lingering for 20 minutes before slipping out. At 1 a.m., then 3:40 a.m., she returned, repeating the same chilling ritual. My blood ran cold. What had happened while I was unconscious? Heart pounding, I rode back to her village. I stood outside her house, fear clawing at me, but I needed answers. I knocked. "Who's there?" Her voice called, and the door swung open. That same dazzling smile greeted me. "Back already?" she said, her tone too warm, too calm. I opened my laptop and showed her the footage. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice shaking. Tears streamed down her face as she stammered an explanation. Something about dementia, a dead son, a missing husband, and not knowing why she did it. But her tears felt hollow, like a performance. I went to the village chief. Over a glass of macchioli, he dropped the bombshell. "She's not demented," he said grimly. For 20 years, she'd been luring young men into her home, engaging in disturbing behavior. She'd been to prison twice. Her stories about a son and husband? Lies. The police knew her well, infamous in the area. Worse, they found traces of cold medicine, 5 pills worth, mixed into the tea I'd drunk. That neck gaiter, stained with her bodily fluids. And the most horrifying part? She sold items like it on a second-hand marketplace under the name Old Fox, targeting newcomers with her gifts. Men, women, it didn't matter. She preyed on anyone. The police could only fine her, citing her age and circumstances. She's still out there, likely repeating her twisted game. The name Old Fox sends shivers down my spine. If you ever see that username on a marketplace, run. This trip was meant to bring me peace, but it left me with a nightmare I'll never forget.